बुद्धो मे शरणं वरं एतेन सच्च होतु मे जयमङ्गलम् उत्तमङ्गेन वन्देऽहं पादपंसो वरुत्तमं बुद्धेयो कलितो दोषो बुद्धो कमतु तं मम बुद्धं यावनिब्बानपर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि। स्वाख्यातो भगवता धम्मो संदिटिको अकालिको एहि पस्सिको अपनायिको पच्छत्तं वेदितव्यो विन्नो हीति नमो तस्य नियानिकस्य धम्मसा ये च धम्मा अतीता च ये च धम्मा अनागता पच्चुपन्ना च ये धम्मा अहं वन्दामि सर्वदा नत्ति मे शरणं गण्यं धम्मो मे शरणं वरं ये तेन सच्च होतु मे जयमङ्गलम् उत्तमङ्गेन वन्देऽहं धम्मं च त्रिदुत्तमं धम्मेयो कलितो दोषो धम्मो कमतु तं मम धम्मं यावनिब्बानपर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि। सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो उजुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो न्यायपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो सामीचिपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो यदिदं चत्तारि पुरिसयुगानि अट्टपुरिसपुग्गला एषा भगवतो सावक संगो आहुनय्यो पाहुनय्यो दक्खिनय्यो अंजलिकरणीयो अनुत्तरं पुण्यकेतं लोकसाति नमो तस् अट्ट आर्य पुग्गला महासंगसा ये च संगा अतीता च ये च संगा अनागता पच्चुपन्ना च ये संगा अहं वन्दामि सर्वदा नत्ति मे शरणं गण्यं संघो मे शरणं वरं ये तेन सच्च होतु मे जयमङ्गलम् उत्तमङ्गेन वन्देऽहं संगं च त्रिविदुत्तमं संगेयो कलितो दोषो संगो कमतु तं मम संगं यावनिब्बानपर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि। विपत्ति पटिवाहाय सब्ब संपत्ति सिद्धिया सब्ब दुःखं विनाशाय सब्ब भयं विनाशाय सब्ब रोगं विनाशाय भवेदीगायुकदायक सब्ब लोकं हितत्ताय परितं तं वनामहे समन्ता चक्रवालेषु अत्र गच्छन्तु देवता तद्धम्मं मुनिराजसा सुनन्तु सग्गमोक्तदं धम्मसवन कालो अयं वदन्तः धम्मसवन कालो अयं वदन्तः परितसवन कालो अयं वदन्तः नमो तस्स भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा एवं मे सुतं येकं समयं भगवा वाराणसीयं विहरति इसी पटने मिगधाये तत्र को भगवा पंचवग्ये भिक्खु अमन्तेसि द्वे मे भिक्खवे अन्था पभजितेन न सेवितब्बा कतमे द्वे योछायं कामेषु कामसुकल्लिकानुयोगो हीनो गम्मो पोतुज्जनिको अनर्यो अनत्तसंहितो योछायं अत्तकिलमतानुयोगो दुःखो अनर्यो अनत्तसंहितो येते को भिक्खवे उभो अन्ते अनुपगम्मा मज्जिमा पटिपदा तथागतेन अभिसंबुद्धा चक्षुकरणी ज्ञानकरणी उपसमाया विन्याय संबोधाय निब्बानाय संवत्तति कतमा च सा भिक्खवे मज्जिमा पटिपदा तथागतेन अभिसंबुद्धा चक्षुकरणी ज्ञानकरणी उपसमाया विन्याय संबोधाय निब्बानाय संवत्तति अयमेवा अर्यो अट्टंगिको मग्गो सय्यतिदं सम्मा दिट्टि सम्मा संकप्पो सम्मा वाचा सम्मा कम्मन्तो सम्मा आजीवो सम्मा वायामो सम्मा सति सम्मा समाधि अयंको सा भिक्खवे मज्जिमा पटिपदा तथागतेन अभिसंबुद्धा चक्षुकरणी ज्ञानकरणी उपसमाया विन्याया संबोधाया निब्बानाय संवत्तति इदं कोपन भिक्खवे दुःखं गर्य सच्चं जातिपि दुःखा जरापि दुःखा व्याधिपि दुःखो मरणंपि दुःखं अप्येहि संपयोगो दुःखोऽप्येहि विपयोगो दुःखो यं पिच्छं नालभति तंपि दुःखं संकिट्टेन पंचुपादानस्कन्ध दुःखा इदं कोपन भिक्खवे दुःख समुदयं गर्य सच्चं यायं तणः पोनभविका नन्दिराग सहगता तत्र तत्राभिनन्दिनी तय्यथिदं कामतनः भवतनः विभवतनः इदं कोपन भिक्खवे दुःख निरोधं गर्य सच्चं यो तस्सा एव तनहाय अशेष विराग निरोधो छागो पटिनि सग्गो मुक्त्यनालयो इदं कोपन भिक्खवे दुःख निरोधगामिनी पटिपदा आर्य सच्चं अयमेव आर्यो अट्टंगिको मग्गो सय्यतिदं सम्मादिट्टि सम्मा संकप्पो सम्मा वाचा सम्मा कम्मन्तो सम्मा आजीवो सम्मा वायामो सम्मा सति सम्मा समाधि इदं दुःखं गर्यसच्छन्ति मे भिक्कवे पुब्बे अनुनुस्सुते सुदम्मेषु चक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि तंकोपनिदं दुःख अर्यसच्छं परिन्नयन्ति मे भिक्कवे पुब्बे अनुनुस्सुते सुदम्मेषु चक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि तंकोपनिदं दुःखं गर्यसच्छं परिन्यातन्ति मे भिक्कवे पुब्बे अनुनुस्सुते सुदम्मे सुचक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि इदं दुःख समुदयं गर्यसच्छन्ति मे भिक्कवे पुब्बे अनुनुस्सुते सुदम्मे सुचक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि तंकोपनिदं दुःख समुदयं गर्यसच्छं पहातब्बन्ति मे भिक्कवे पुब्बे अनुनुस्सुते सुदम्मे चक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि तंकोपनिदं दुःख समुदयं अर्यसत्यं पहीनन्ति मे भिक्खवे पुब्बे अनुनस्सुते सुदम्मे सुचक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि इदं दुःख निरोधं अर्यसत्यन्ति मे भिक्खवे पुब्बे अनुनस्सुते सुदम्मे सुचक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि तंकोपनिदं दुःख निरोधं गर्यसच्छं सच्चिका तब्बन्ति मे भिक्कवे पुब्बे अनुनुस्सुते सुदम्मे सुचक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि तंकोपनिदं दुःख निरोधं गर्यसच्छं सच्चिकतन्ति मे भिक्कवे पुब्बे अनुनुस्सुते सुदम्मे सुचक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि इदं दुःख निरोधगामिनी पटिपदा अर्यसच्छन्ति मे भिक्खवे पुब्बे अनुनस्सुते सुदम्मे सुचक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि तंकोपनिदं दुःख निरोधगामिनी पटिपदा अर्यसच्छं भावे तब्बन्ति मे भिक्खवे पुब्बे अनुनस्सुते सुदम्मे सुचक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि तंकोपनिदं दुःख निरोधगामिनी पटिपदा अर्यसच्छं भावितन्ति मे भिक्खवे पुब्बे अनुनस्सुते सुदम्मे सुचक्कुं उदपादि ज्ञानं उदपादि पन्या उदपादि विद्या उदपादि आलोको उदपादि यावकी वंच मे भिक्खवे इमे सुचतुषु अर्यसत्सेषु एवं त्रिपरिवत्तं त्वदसाकारं यथा भूतं ज्ञानदर्शनं न सुविशुद्धं गहोसि नेवतावाहं भिक्खवे सदैव के लोके समारके सब्रह्म के सत्समण ब्राह्मणीयापजाय सदैव मनुष्याय अनुत्तरं सम्मा संबोधिं अविसंबुद्धोति पच्चन्यासिं तोचको मे भिक्खवे इमेषु चतुषु अर्यसच्चेषु एवं त्रिपरिवत्तं वतसाकारं यथाभूतं ज्ञानदर्शनं सुविशुद्धं गहोसि अताहं भिक्खवे सदैव के लोके समारके सब्रह्म के सत्समण ब्राह्मणीयापजाय सदैव मनुष्याय अनुत्तरं सम्मा संबोधिं अभिसंबुद्धोति पच्चन्यासिं ज्ञानञ्च परमे दर्शनं उदपादि अकुप्पा मे चेतो विमोति अयमंति मा जाति नत्थिदानि पुनर्भवोति इदमवोच भगवा अत्तमना पंचवग्गिया भिक्खु भगवतो भासितं अभिनन्दन्ति इमस्मिन् च पनवैयाकरणस्मिन् बन्यामाने अयस्मतो कोण्डन्यस्य विरजं वीतमलं धम्मचक्रुं उदपादि यंकिंचि समुदय धम्मं सब्बन्तं निरोधं धम्मन्ति पवत्तिते त्र्या भगवता धम्मचक्के भूमा देवा सद्दमनुस्सावेसुं येतं भगवता बाणस्यंगिसि पटाने मिगदाये अनुत्तरं धम्मचक्रं पवत्तितं अप्पटिवत्यं समणेन वा ब्राह्मणेन वा देवेन वा मारेण वा ब्रह्मणा वा केनचिवालोकस्मिन्ति बुम्मानां देवानां सद्दं सुत्वा चातु महाराजिका देवा सद्दमनुस्सावेसुं येतं भगवता बाणस्यंगिसि पटाने मिगदाये अनुत्तरं धम्मचक्रं पवत्तितं अप्पटिवत्यं समणेन वा ब्राह्मणेन वा देवेन वा मारेण वा ब्रह्मणा वा केनचिवालोकस्मिन्ति चातु महाराजिकानां देवानां सद्दं सुत्वा तावतिंस देवा सद्दमनुस्सावेसुं येतं भगवता बाणस्यंगिसि पटाने मिगदाये अनुत्तरं धम्मचक्रं पवत्तितं अप्पटिवत्यं समणेन वा ब्राह्मणेन वा देवेन वा मारेण वा ब्रह्मणा वा केनचिवालोकस्मिन्ति तावतिंसानां देवानां सद्दं सुत्वा यामदेव सद्दमनुस्सावेसुं येतं भगवता बाणस्यंगिसि पटाने मिगदाये अनुत्तरं धम्मचक्रं पवत्तितं अप्पटिवत्यं समणेन वा ब्राह्मणेन वा देवेन वा मारेण वा ब्रह्मणा वा केनचिवालोकस्मिन्ति यामानां देवानां सद्दं सुत्वा सुतदेवा सद्दमनुस्सावेसुं येतं भगवता बाणस्यंगिसि पटाने मिगदाये अनुत्तरं धम्मचक्रं पवत्तितं अप्पटिवत्यं समणेन वा ब्राह्मणेन वा देवेन वा मारेण वा ब्रह्मणा वा केनचिवालोकस्मिन्ति तुसितानां देवानां सद्दं सुत्वा निम्माणरति देवा सद्दमनुस्सावेसं येतं भगवता बाणस्यंगिसि पटाने मिगदाये Anuttarang Dhammachakram Pavatitang Appativatyang Samanena va Brahmanena va Devena va Marena va Brahmana va Kena Chivalotasminti Nimmana Ratinang Devanang Saddam Sutva Paranimita Vasavatino Deva Saddamanusavesu Etang Bhagavata Varnasyangi Sipatane Megadaye Anuttarang Dhammachakram Pavatitang Appativatyang Samanena va Brahmanena va Devena va Marena va Brahmana va Kena Chivalotasminti Paranimita Vaswatinang Devanang Saddam Sutva Brahmakaika Deva Saddamanusavesu Etang Bhagavata Varnasyangi Sipatane Megadaye Anuttarang Dhammachakram Pavatitang Appativatyam Samanena va Brahmanena va Devena va Marena va Brahmana va Kena Chivalotasminti Iti Hattena Kanena Tena Layena Tena Muhuttena Yava Brahmaloka Saddo Buggachi Ayancha Dasasahasi Lokadatu Sankampi Sampakampi Sampavevi Appamano Chaudaro Baso Loke Paturahosi Atikkam Devanang Devanubhavam Atako Bhagava Imang Udanang Udanesi Anyasi Vatabo Kondanyo Anyasi Vatabo Kondanyoti Iti Hidang Ayasmato Kondanyasya Anya Kondanyot Vevanamang Ahositi Yetena Satchavajjena Sotino Hotu Sabbada Yetena Satchavajjena Hotuno Jayamangalam Yetena Satchavajjena Patuno Ratanatayan Namo Thassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Sabityo Vivajjantu Sabbaro Govinasatu Mate Bhavatantarayo Sukhi Diga Yuko Bhava Bhavatu Sabba Mangalang Rakkantu Sabba Devata Sabba Buddhanubhavena Sabba Dhammanubhavena Sabba Dhamman Sabba Sanganubhavena Sada Swati Bhavantu Te Imina Punya Kammena Mame Bala Samadamo Satang Samagamo Hotu Yava Nibbana Patya Idang Me Punya Kammang Asavakayang Vaham Hotu Sabba Dukkha Pamucchatu Nibbana Sampachayo Hotu Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu. So today it's the continuation of last week's Dhamma talk about what is this rotation, rotating this Dhamma wheel. So that the chanting that you have heard is the first discourse given by Buddha, which is called the Dhamma Chakra Pavattana Sutta. Dhamma Chakra means the Dhamma wheel, Chakra, Chakra. Dhamma wheel, Pavattana means like rotating, turning. So as I was telling you last time, it is just the flow started. The flow of Dhamma started in the world. Because when Buddhas arise in the world, when they discover the true Dhamma, the Saddhamma, the knowledge that liberates the human beings authoritatively, correctly, perfectly, that knowledge is Dhamma. Here that is the meaning. The knowledge that liberates the people authoritatively from these mental defilements, completely purify the mind and liberate the minds. Once our minds are liberated, the bodies also will be liberated. There will be no more rebirth. That kind of authoritative knowledge, when it arises in the world by the discovery of these supremely enlightened Buddhas, like our Gautama Buddha, then what happens? Then they start teaching, and they have that ability to teach and liberate others also. That's why they're called Samma Sambuddhas. And that very first teaching, from there the rotation starts. The Dhamma flow starts in the world. The Dhamma river, it starts. Then it flows, and it will cover so many individuals, so many divine beings, so many Brahma beings, and it will soak them in this Dhamma, soak them in this knowledge. They inundate them in this knowledge, and they get liberated. So that kind of symbolism we can use for this, say, discovery of Dhamma and the Dhamma being taught to others. And many people start realizing, liberating. So that flow, that initiation towards liberation caused by the teaching of the supremely enlightened Buddhas, that is what is called Dhamma Chakra Pavattana. So the other symbolism is like the Dhamma wheel, the knowledge of Dhamma, the knowledge wheel of Dhamma. It started rolling. And when it started rolling, so it started, say, conquering so many minds of the people. So many minds are conquered. The Dhamma wheel, it conquers so many minds, and they get liberated from this knowledge of this ultimate liberation. The ancient kings, they used to send the chariots or the horses, like say, when it starts rolling and started moving in different countries. So it is like say, then they proclaim that that country belongs to this monarch, this king, this wheel turning monarch. So sometimes they send the chariots, sometimes they send the horses, Sameda. They send the horses once the horse, when nobody tries to tie it or try to fight with the king, they allow that horse, allow that chariot to go around, move around in their kingdom. That means that kingdom is loyal to this person who has sent that chariot or sent that horse. In the same way, when this Dhamma wheel starts rotating, so it starts conquering the people, conquering the minds of the people. They succumb to this superiority of this knowledge, and they bow down to this knowledge, and they get liberated. In that way, when this Dhamma wheel starts rotating, then all the false knowledges, all the false egos, all the suffering that is created because of false knowledge and false ego, all those things will be shattered. They will be removed, they will be destroyed, they will be completely, say, annihilated to zero. And people start experiencing that ultimate freedom, ultimate wisdom, ultimate happiness, ultimate peace. That's why it's called, symbolically, it's called the Dhamma wheel. The flow of knowledge, when it starts in the world, it's called the Dhamma wheel started rotating. The true knowledge started rotating and started conquering the people. That's what is the meaning. And that we have seen in the Indian flag also. You see the blue wheel. And Ashoka, the King Ashoka, after some 250 years of Buddha, this King Ashoka, he started appreciating, started, say, completely surrendering to the teachings of Buddha. And not only he and his children, his relatives, his royal family members, even his subjects also, they started following their king's religion or king's, say, view, king's belief system, that is the teachings of Buddha. He started believing, and the people also started believing. And also he started spreading this to different parts of the world. He sent some 9 major ambassador groups, messengers, great Dhamma messengers to different parts of the world. And he sent his own son and daughter to Sri Lanka. The same way he sent several messengers to different parts of the world. And that spread again, it took a bigger form, became much more authoritative. That missionary zeal started, and because of that missionary zeal, the Dhamma started spreading all over the world to different countries. Started going beyond Jambudvipa, beyond this Indian subcontinent. It went up to Greece, and of course to different parts of Myanmar, Thailand, Suvarnadvipa, that time it was called. So it went to these eastern parts of eastern countries and also western countries, till Greece it spread. So in that way, again the Dhamma, it took a momentum, it took a higher momentum, bigger momentum, the higher speed it gained, and it started spreading all over the world during the realm of, during the period of, during the rule of Ashoka. So that's why he just highlighted this Dhamma wheel in the emblem also. That's why it's called Ashoka's national emblem, Ashoka's emblem. So it's, of course, it is again the Indian national emblem, the Lanchana. In the national emblem also you see the 4 lions, and also below that you can see this Dhamma wheel. with 24 spokes. So in these 24 spokes represent the 9 qualities of Buddha, the 6 qualities of the Dhamma, his teachings, and again 9 qualities of the people after following Buddha who became liberated, Aryas, Arya Sangha, the qualities of the Arya Sangha. There are some 9 qualities. So total 24 qualities of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. It is represented in this Dhamma wheel, the wheel which contains 24 spokes. And of course, all these spokes, all these qualities, they highlight liberation, they highlight mind purification, they highlight Nibbana, they highlight supreme peace, supreme bliss. That's what is this Dhamma wheel and the spokes of the Dhamma wheel, they represent. There is nothing beyond that. There is nothing less than that also. All these spokes, all these Dhamma, it represents liberation, liberation, liberation. That's all. Nothing beyond that or nothing less than that. In that way, so if you talk about Buddha, you talk about his teachings, you talk about his community of followers, disciples. So all these things represent only liberation. Only liberation, only purification and liberation. That's it. So that's what is the beauty of Indian subcontinent. So each and every subject or the person in this belt, generally they say, they're imbibed with this idea of Dhamma, though they may not be authoritatively trotting in this path, but that is very much into their psyche. That is the very purpose of the life. That's what in this Indian subcontinent. Buddhas, so many Buddhas, not just one Buddha. So many Buddhas have imbibed that idea into the Indian subcontinent. And also so many other masters from other regions also. They highlighted the importance of mind liberation, moksha, mukti. Though they may talk in different paths, whether they're authoritative or not very authoritative, whatever it may be. The goals they talk about is almost like the goal of liberation or the goal of mind purification and liberation. But Buddha could give the authoritative ways and means. And luckily it was safeguarded by few masters. And so some people practicing those things there, they are in this path of liberation, very much there in the path of liberation. So in that way, the Dhamma wheel represents nothing less than or nothing more than the liberation of the mind. And it's in the dynamic form. The wheel represents the dynamism. It's not stagnant, it's not still, it's moving, it is in the movement, it's in the motion. When something is in the motion, then what it represents, then it's not only one person who is getting the benefit of that, it is helping millions, it is helping others also. That is the say meaning of this movement of or this motion of the wheel. It is encompassing, it is embracing, or it is occupying, it is conquering the others' minds also. So that is the meaning of this movement of the wheel, the motion. Wheel always represents motion. So when this wheel, say what kind of motion it is representing? It is representing the motion of this true knowledge that liberates the people. So that's what is this Dhamma. I was in one meditation center in Burma, in Myanmar. Of course, they have centers all over the world. It's a very authoritative meditation center as far as my knowledge is concerned, where they follow absolute the rules and regulations, the monastic rules, each and every rule that will keep your mind in the track of liberation. So in that way, that is an authoritative meditation center. So many other monasteries, like pristine purity, or they're called Nisagya monasteries, where they're not according to their commitment. Once you take some precepts of the monastic order, then you should stick on to it and you should follow that. And if you indulge in so many other things which don't involve your time and your efforts to liberate you, then they're called Nisagya monastery. It is simply one kind of wrong track, off track. So such kind of say monasteries, they can't have that self-confidence even to promote this Dhamma wheel as their logo, as their symbol. But here, this monastery, they have the tremendous confidence because they're sticking on to this one and only goal of the life of those who are practicing here. And very authoritatively, very systematically, it has been worked out there. The different teachings of Buddha, the different meditation techniques of Buddha, authoritative way, they're being practiced. And they have this Dhamma wheel in their logo, in the organization logo, they have that Dhamma wheel. Not only this Dhamma wheel, they have these 4 lions also, the roaring lions. And they argue this Dhamma wheel, they place this Dhamma wheel on the top of the these lions' head, the top of these 4 lions. They used to keep this Dhamma wheel. So they want to tell the world. So these 4 roaring lions, they are carrying this Dhamma wheel and they are roaring this Dhamma in all the 4 directions of the world. That's what they want to proclaim to the world. They want to tell the world that these 4 roaring lions, they are propagating through this Dhamma wheel. They are propagating the true knowledge of the true teachings of Buddha. So in that way, they represent the 4 the roaring lions, and above them, above the heads of these 4 roaring lions, they keep this Dhamma wheel. But in the Indian national emblem, it is below these 4 roaring lions, you can see this Dhamma wheel, and of course, the other animals also you can see, like the bull, elephant, horse, something like that. But all those things, of course, they represent the power, the mightiness of this Dhamma wheel, the spread of Dhamma. But in that organization, they say, and also they claim that the original Buddha's, Ashoka's emblem, it has the same design. They say that even Ashoka has kept the Dhamma wheel above the top of the lions' heads, but because it is broken and maybe damaged, that's why you don't see the Dhamma wheel on the top of the heads of these lions. That's what they argue, whatever it may be, but their intention is very pure and powerful. So they want to promote this Dhamma wheel, the spread of Dhamma through these roaring lions, through all parts of the world, through all the 4 directions of the world. That's what is their intention. So that's what is the symbolism, that's what is the meaning of Dhamma wheel. So now coming to this Dhammacakka Pavattana Sutta, the contents of this Dhamma, the first discourse, the Dhammacakka, how this Dhamma, the essence of Dhamma is actually present in this first discourse itself. So if you are so enthusiastically appreciating this Dhamma wheel and the power behind this symbolism, it's not only the confidence, the enthusiasm, the energy, the eagerness, the strength, the force. In addition to that, there should be knowledge also. There should be understanding also. So understanding and awareness, they should go together with your beautiful, wholesome feelings and your confidence. Both these 2 sets of the 4 faculties of the mind, they should go together. Your concern, your care, your wholesome feelings, compassion, and the confidence associated with that, it should be always balanced by your understanding, your awareness, your knowledge. So when you are talking about Dhamma, when you are talking about the beauty of Dhamma, the power of Dhamma, and its ability to eradicate the defilements of the human mind, then you should know what exactly is that Dhamma, what are the contents of the Dhamma also you should know. Then only your it's justifiable. You're giving justice to your argument or your confidence. If the confidence lacks knowledge, then there is no meaning in that confidence. The confidence lacks that meditative knowledge or the knowledge of the mind. Simply, I want to promote this knowledge, that itself is not sufficient. It should be associated with the understanding. So that's what we are trying to find out. We're trying to learn from all these courses, meditation courses, the Dhamma talks. And of course, the meditation courses are more important. Regular meditation practice is more important, because that's where the actual purification starts, actual churning starts. The turning of the mind leads to it must lead to the churning of the mind. So I repeat, the turning of the wheel, so it should represent the churning of the mind. Then only it is the actual Dhamma wheel rotation. Otherwise, it is simply a superficial or a bogus Dhamma rotation. Simply, it will remain at your confidence level or belief level or faith level. So it will not percolate into understanding level, means then it will not serve the purpose. So, so with that, introduction and background. So now, of course, last week also we have learned a bit about this Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. As I was telling you, the background story, Buddha traveled all the way from Bodh Gaya to Sarnath to teach his 5 disciples. And of course, during those times, almost all of these spiritual seekers, they fall into these extremes of self-indulgence, sensual indulgence, or they fall into the extremes of self-torture, the bodily torture, thinking that these extreme ways only will lead to liberation of the mind, liberation of the soul, of the mind, or mukti, whatever you call, or nibbana, or nirvana. Buddha is the first person who could discover that that is not the way. It is the middle path. It is the mind-centered. Mind should be comfortably supported by the body. The body should not be tortured. Body should not be completely indulge in the sensual pleasures, get carried away by the sensual pleasures. The body should be supported. It should be comfortable. Then only that comfortable body will help in the comfort of the mind, and then they can work on the mind. That kind of moderation, that kind of mind-centeredness, that middle path is recommended by Buddha in this very first discourse. And then he elaborates this middle path. And he says, these extreme paths are so mean, so ignoble, it is so, they will not lead to the welfare of one's own being. Anatta samhito means like they will not lead to the welfare of a person. It will simply confuses the person or tortures the person, that's all. These extreme ways. So you should stick on to the middle path. So he could learn it from the sound of the lute. The lute sound, it is pleasant, it is perfect when the strings are tied with that medium force. If it is tied too tightly, you can't create the sound. If it is tied too loosely, also it can't create the proper sound. So it should be moderately, with moderate force, it should be tied. And also he could remember when he was young, such as some 7 years old, sitting under a tree, jambu tree, he could get the jhana, the comfort in the body and mind. And from there I should start, that he realized. When he was sitting under the Bodhi tree to become enlightened, he realized that the extreme things are not good. Simply torturing the body, torturing the mind, simply indulging the body, indulging the mind, the sensuality, it will not help. The jhanas are the middle path. So that he remembered when he was a child, he could achieve that jhana. There it is the best possible comfort for the body and the mind. So from that state I should start. That he realized. And from there he started, and he could get the insights. So, and he could get the ultimate liberating knowledge, the Four Noble Truths, the middle path also, authoritative. For this Noble Eightfold Path also, he could discover from that comfortable body and comfortable mind. from the balance in the body and mind with regard to comfort. So from there he could realize, and that he started narrating, started explaining, started teaching to his disciples, the 5 disciples. And they were also very special disciples. They left everything for the sake of Buddha, for the sake of learning this Bodhi knowledge, the knowledge of mind liberation. They could give up all the worldly life. They were also from the royal background. So they left their royal background and they started following Buddha, started serving Buddha. And when they learned that Buddha is indulging in eating, they were thinking that only torturing the body without eating is the way to liberation. When Buddha started taking food, they thought that he's indulging in the sensual things, so they left him. But Buddha didn't bother and started working on his mind and got the supreme enlightenment. Then when he came to his 5 disciples, then he understood the minds of these 5 disciples, why they left him, all those things he was well aware. So he started teaching this middle path, and in this middle path, he highlighted about the importance of keeping the mind and body in a very balanced, at a very comfortable level, not to torture, not to simply carried away by the sensual pleasures. From there, he starts his Dhammapala Sutta. And that tree is what is called moderation, or the middle path, or the mind-centeredness. From there, again, he started teaching. This middle path is nothing but the Noble Eightfold Path. Middle path, it has 8 steps. So these 8 steps he started explaining in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So what are these 8 steps that Buddha is talking about? Sammaditthi, the right view itself, is the very first step. You should have this moderation approach, this little bit knowledge of these 4 noble truths, knowledge of this Kammasakata Samadhi. That means like should have some belief in the action and the reaction, cause and effect. Whatever good I do, I will get back. Whatever bad I do, I will get back. Then only you start doing the good things, then start purifying the mind, then that purified mind only will take you to a higher knowledge, just the liberation of the mind. So that kind of the knowledge of the law of action and reaction, law of cause and effect also he started talking about in this right view, the very first step of the Noble Eightfold Path. And then he started talking about the second step, Samma Sankap, the right thoughts, the right intentions. If you have the right view, then you will start working on your own mind, minding your own business. I should not indulge in the cruel thoughts because it will harm me only. I should not indulge in greedy thoughts, it will harm me only. That kind of non-greed, non-hatred, non-deluded thoughts, which will start arising in your mind if you have the right view. Those right thoughts are called Samma Sankappa, or the right intentions. So in that way, he started explaining the different these 8 steps in this Noble Eightfold Path. Then he started explaining. So in this very first step, that is Sammaditthi, the right view, this these 4 noble truths will come. Understanding the 4 noble truths is very crucial, very fundamental. And it is the beginning and it is the end of Dhamma, actually. So by realizing these 4 noble truths only, I could discover the ultimate reality and I could liberate completely my mind. In that way, he started appreciating the 4 noble truths, which comes under again in this very first step of this Noble Eightfold Path, that is right view. And of course, all other remaining 7, they follow this right view. As I was telling you, the Samma Sankappa, it is the right thoughts that has the origin in right view. If you have right view, then you will not indulge in the thoughts of greed, thoughts of hatred, thoughts of delusion. And then comes the right speech, when your mind is free from these greed, hatred, and delusion thoughts. Then you start speaking the right things. You will not speak the lies, you will not speak the harsh things. Then comes the right actions. Then you won't indulge in the wrong things.
like killing, like stealing, and all these things which emanate from the wrong view and wrong thoughts, that will stop. Then you won't fall into the trap of the wrong livelihoods, the livelihood that will lead to harming people, killing people, cheating people. And that kind of livelihood, that kind of professions don't indulge in. And then there you don't stop. Then you start working on your mind. Then you start controlling the mind. Then samma vayama, you start controlling the mind. Start keeping the right things in your mind. Start pushing out the wrong things. Start protecting the right things in your mind. Start resisting the wrong things to enter into your mind. And then you start developing this mindfulness. Mindfulness also will keep your mind protected from all these wrong things, and it will protect the right things to remain in your mind. Mindfulness, it has so many other benefits. The right mindfulness only will lead to the right absorptions, the right concentration of the mind. And from there, you will start getting the right knowledges, and your mind will be liberated. That way, he started explaining the Noble Eightfold Path. As a first step in this Noble Eightfold Path, he started explaining the right view and the Four Noble Truths in this right. Because she was very sure, was absolutely clear after his enlightenment, that understanding the Four Noble Truths as deeply as possible, as profoundly as possible, is the means to liberation. That's for that he was very clear. That is the summum bonum, that is the essence of all the teachings of Buddha. So the same essence you can see in this Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta also. And the beauty of this sutta, he explains this Noble Eightfold Path and this Noble Truths, these Four Noble Truths as the first step in this Noble Eightfold Path, as a part of right view. He explains these Four Noble Truths at three levels. At three levels he explains. That is the beauty. So in other explanations of this Noble Eightfold Path, so this explaining the Noble Truths at three levels you don't see. But here in this Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, he explained this. Dvatasakaram. So 3 levels and 4 truths. That means the 12 aspects of the Noble Truths he explains. So that we will see now. So maybe it's maybe for the beginners it may be little say deep, but still it's okay. So if you just listen to this carefully, attentively, then definitely it will have some impact in your understanding of the Four Noble Truths. So what Buddha talks about in this explanation of the Four Noble Truths. And he says, furthermore, because this is the dukkha arya satcha, this is the first truth, first noble truth of suffering. Many people, they translate this dukkha as say stress also, the first noble truth of stress. Suffering, generally people think about physical suffering, but here dukkha means it is not just physical suffering, it is the mental suffering, and it is even the subtlest suffering also, and to the greatest physical and mental suffering. So it encompasses all kinds of physical, mental sufferings, from subtlest to the deepest. So all the different kinds of this stress, it comes under this word dukkha. So that's why maybe the better translation may be stress than suffering. That's what nowadays many masters, they started translating this dukkha as stress. The first noble truth of stress, or the first noble truth of suffering, what Buddha talks about. Jati is dukkha, the very birth is dukkha, jara, the old age is dukkha, and the sickness is dukkha, death is dukkha, association with what is liked is what is disliked is dukkha. You don't like something, but you have to be in association with that. That is also stress. That is also suffering. And dissociation from what is liked is dukkha. You like something, but you have to dissociate from it. That is also stress. Or not to get what you want, that is also stress. That is also anxiety. That is also dukkha, suffering. And in brief, he says, all the clinging aggregates, we are clinging to our own mental aggregates, our own mind, our own mental aspirations, physical desires, mental desires. All this clinging to this body and mind itself is dukkha. In that way, he explains this dukkha. And again, he explains the second noble truth, dukkha samudaya. Why this dukkha arises? It is because of our own craving, our own attachment and craving. So we hold on to the things, and that very holding on will create stress for us. Stress comes from attachment and that holding on, and from that craving. So again, you attach in three ways. You attach to essential things, you attach to the ego, that bhavatanaha, for promoting and projecting I and mine, myself, minus and minus. That is also dukkha. That is also stress. And also you have an attachment to freedom and attachment to liberation. Too much craving for liberation is also subtle dukkha, subtle stress. It leads to a lot of stress, subtle stress. So in that way, Buddha talks about the three levels of this cause of dukkha, the attachment or the craving. And then he also talks about the four ways of letting go the things. So if you learn the four ways of letting go, then again you have entered into the path of freedom, path of liberation. You have understood the importance of letting go in coming out of this craving, learning this art of giving. So that is the way to get happiness and get get out of this stress, get freedom from the stress. And again, he says the Noble Eightfold Path is the way to come out of this. That is the fourth noble truth that will take you out of this stress authoritatively. If you follow the Noble Eightfold Path, the 8 steps authoritatively, you can come out of the stress, all kinds of stress, physical stress, mental stress, physical suffering, mental suffering. So in that way, he started explaining these 4 noble truths. Again, he goes at 3 levels how he realized this, these 4 noble truths. He talks about the first noble truth. I started parinyati, means like first I understood there is dukkha, and then started thoroughly understanding. Parinyati means like comprehensively understanding, thoroughly understanding, overall understanding is called parinyati. It has to be completely understood. That's what I realized, the first noble truth. Then I completely understood the first noble truth. So in the 3 levels, I understood the first one. First, I understood there is stress in this existence, and then I have to understand this stress completely. That's what is the second level of understanding the first noble truth. And then I completely understood this. I have to understand, that is one thing. Then I have understood completely, that is the third level. So in the 3 levels, I could understand the first noble truth. The same way, the second noble truth I could understand at the 3 levels, abandoning, pahana. So the craving I could understand at the first level, and at the second level also I can understand the second noble truth. It has to be completely eradicated. That knowledge also it has arisen in my mind. And then the third level is I could completely eradicate this craving, and I could completely liberate my mind. So in that way, at the 3 levels also, the second noble truths, I have to eradicate. I could eradicate this craving. So at these 3 levels, I could understand the second noble truth. Then comes the third noble truth. So in the third noble truth, it talks about third and the fourth noble truth. It is the way to liberate the mind by developing the art of giving, art of letting go. Again, at 3 levels, I could penetrate into that. I developed this third noble truth and the fourth noble truth authoritatively at 3 levels, and I could get the absolute liberation, absolute freedom, absolute wisdom of enlightenment, supreme enlightenment, just by going through deeply, going through these 12 steps of liberating my mind through this by thorough understanding of these 4 noble truths. That way, he highlighted the beauty, highlighted the significance highlighted the authority of these Four Noble Truths in this Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So by listening to this, only one of the disciples, he could get that insight of Nibbana. He could completely see the nature of this body and mind, the ultimate nature of this body and mind, and he could completely see how to let go this body and mind to experience the ultimate peace, ultimate bliss. So that is Kondanya, the senior most disciple. He was looking old also at that time. He could penetrate into these Four Noble Truths and he could liberate his mind by understanding craving is the cause of suffering, giving and giving up is the cause of enlightenment or liberation, and how authoritatively one can give and give up. All those things he could comprehend. Third and fourth Noble Truths also he could comprehend. The first and second Noble Truths also he could comprehend. And thereby he was free from all the defilements of mind, all the taints of the mind, and his mind had become completely pure, and he could see the glimpse of the enlightenment, absolute enlightenment. And Buddha could see this with his powerful mind, enlightened mind. He could see the enlightenment has happened in the case of Kondanya also. He became very happy. He started, say, exclaiming, "Oh, this Kondanya also has become wise Kondanya." He became the wise man now because he could see the liberation. He could see the enlightenment. He could see the absolute Nibbana, the glimpse of Nibbana. So now he has become the wise Kondanya. That way, Buddha could exclaim after this discourse. And meanwhile, what happened? All the devas at the higher levels of existence, they also could listen to this, and they also could exclaim, and it could reach the higher levels in this cosmic world. The higher devas also could listen, and they could also exclaim, and it could reach the Brahmic realms also. And thereby, so many billions of Brahmic beings also they could liberate, and even the divine beings also they could liberate. So the very first discourse itself could liberate millions and billions of divine beings and Brahmic beings, but only one human being, that is Kondanya. But that was good enough to start with in this human body. So even that one person, it became 5, it became 60, it became 1,000, it became 60,000, it became lakhs, millions, billions. That wheel started rotating just from one person. First, from the discoverer, that is Buddha, it reached only one person in this first discourse, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. But from then onwards, it started rolling in ferociously or aggressively, and it could liberate millions and billions of people, human beings also. Not only the divine beings, it could liberate the human beings also. That's why it's called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. That very first turning, the very first push, the very first rotation of this wheel, it could gain momentum and it could liberate millions and billions, and it's still going on. That's how it is significant. This discourse is significant. This occasion is significant because the first glimpse of Nibbana started appearing in the mind of one human being, that is Kondanya. Other than the discoverer, the Sammasambuddha, the Gautama Buddha. Other than him, it started penetrating, started flowing through the mind of this Kondanya also. That's why it's called Dhammacakkappavattana. The wheel started turning. So that is about the importance of this Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. And this week, actually, for Wednesday, people celebrated this full moon day, this Dhammacakkappavattana day all over the world. Of course, the entire week people celebrate this Dhammacakkappavattana. It's not just out of some blind faith we should do this, and we should imbibe the spirit behind this. Why this Dhammacakka? What exactly is this Dhamma? What exactly is the understanding of this liberating knowledge? That also one should slowly, of course, people who are indulged in so many worldly things, one need not expect them to be liberated overnight. But the spirit of this Dhamma Chakrapavatana, or this Dhamma rotation, one should absorb it. Once you absorb this spirit, then slowly, slowly it will percolate, and slowly, slowly it will liberate your mind in your practice, your thinking, in your view, in your actions, in your speech, everything it will start expressing. And then slowly, slowly, you will turn towards this liberating path more authoritatively, more firmly, more enthusiastically. You can turn towards this path. So that is about the importance of this Dhamma Chakrapavatana day. And I wish all of you get imbibed by the meaning and the spirit of this Dhamma Chakrapavatana Sutta, and also the meaning and the spirit of this Dhamma wheel. And may all of you progress in this path with more enthusiasm, firm conviction. And I think that much is enough for today. And as usual, if you have some questions, you can ask, and then we'll come. Yeah, if there are some questions. Any questions?
Not yet, Guruji.
Generally, they send their questions after 11, right?
Yes, Guruji.
Now, of course, yeah, it's almost 11. So as I was telling you, the summum bonum, the essence, spirit of the Dhamma, one should catch hold of. Not simply the peripheral things, not simply out of some vested interest. Catch hold of Dhamma with some vested interest, then it will be more harmful than its use. You can't reap the benefits of the Dhamma if you corrupt it with some vested interest, forgetting about the prime focus, the prime objective of being in Dhamma, indulging in Dhamma, trotting the path of Dhamma. If you just leave it, and if you just start looking at its, say, very mean benefits, like the social benefits or the political benefits, or maybe sometimes economic benefits, or maybe some ego satisfied benefits. If these things, if you look at with this Dhamma wheel or this learning Dhamma, then your corruptions or your defilements will multiply. Instead of subduing your defilements, instead of say annihilating or removing your defilements, you start multiplying the defilements. That is not the purpose of involving in this Dhamma practice or Dhamma study or Dhamma learning. So the very core purpose you should strike, you should understand, you should absorb, and you should hold on to it. Then no other mean purposes, mean ideas, mean influences will affect you. Once you thoroughly establish in this core purpose of mind purification, right view mind purification, then other mean ideas, mean purposes will not trouble you, will not divert you. And then sooner or later, you will reach the goal. And then that very path itself, you start appreciating, you start getting a lot of happiness. That liberating happiness, that purification happiness is the authoritative happiness. You get that that samatha sukha, that equanimity happiness also you get in this purification happiness, this liberating happiness. Each and every step will liberate you, will give you happiness, will purify your mind. And of course, the beginning will be beautiful, it will be good. The middle also will be good. At the end also, you get absolute peace, absolute happiness. If that is the benefit of this right view path, then why should you hesitate, or why should you fall into the trap of other mean aspirations of learning Dhamma or learning other things other than Dhamma? Don't get trapped, don't get fall into the, don't get say that kind of wrong traps that will simply create more suffering, more stress. Once you establish in this path, then you get that stability, mental stability and physical stability also. That way, understand this samam bonum, the essence, the spirit of this Dhamma, and then automatically that Dhamma will start rotating in your mind also. It will start moving in your mind deeply, will start removing the defilements of your mind. So allow this Dhamma will to rotate in your mind also. Not only spread these teachings, spread this right view on these courses to more and more people. Allow this right view on this Dhamma week to rotate, to go deep in your mind also. Both these things should happen simultaneously. You should start helping other people to introduce this right view mind purification. At the same time, you should allow this right view mind purification to go deep and deep into your mind. Through practice, through listening, through of course, by helping others also, it will go deeper. If you help others, you will be helped. If you help yourself by practicing, then indirectly you will help others also. They always go together. And consciously also, you should involve in helping yourself, helping others. Just like the Four Noble Truths is there in the Noble Eightfold Path, and the Noble Eightfold Path is there in the Four Noble Truths. In the same way, helping others will help you, helping yourself will help others. In absorbing, in allowing this Dhamma will to go inwards, and it should go inwards, should take the inside journey also, and it should go outwards. It should take the outside journey also. Then only you will be authoritative, say traveler in this path of right view, path of Dhamma, path of right view, mind purification and liberation. So that is the spirit, that is the significance of this understanding the Four Noble Truths, understanding Dhamma, understanding the right view. Okay.
Namaste, Guruji.
Yes,
There's a question from Deepali Hebali, ma'am. She's asking, what is the meaning of real deep understanding of noble truths, Bhante?
Yeah, it is a step-by-step understanding. So as I was telling you, the beginning of right view is in the understanding of Four Noble Truths. So what is suffering? What is the cause of suffering? How the more attachment leads to more suffering? How more craving leads to more suffering? That is superficial, or the first step of understanding the first two noble truths. And giving up, letting go. How best I can give, how skillfully I can give and give up, how authoritatively, systematically I can give and give up through this right view, right intentions, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right efforts, right mindfulness, right concentration. From these things, how I can give and give up, thereby I can reduce craving. By reducing craving, I can reduce suffering and stress. So that knowledge of giving and giving up leads to happiness, leads to liberation, leads to stresslessness. So that aspect one can learn from the third and fourth noble truths. And that's what is the beginning of this understanding the Four Noble Truths. So that's, of course, many of you, those who have gone through level 1, level 2, level 3, and the bridge course also, you have got some idea about The intellectual understanding of the Four Noble Truths, maybe from different angles. But once you can penetrate into these Four Noble Truths, even through meditation, that's what meditators do when they start becoming Aryas, when they start knowing the insight knowledges. They understand, how this body, the four elements of this body, they create stress. How these four components of the mind, they create stress. That you start realizing in your meditation, when you're in the deep absorption. Even a small wobble, even a small thought, it creates some stress. And the mind is so peaceful. If a thought arises, that creates stress. Why this thought has arisen? I was enjoying the peace and peace. This stupid thought, it has created stress for me. In that way, this mind creates stress. That idea you will get when you are in deep meditation. That time, even the physical comforts of the physical, the desire for the physical comforts, that kind of thoughts also, that kind of the physical desires also, they create some stress. And why again you realize why this kind of desires, this very existence of these four elements and the four components of the mind. So this creates some kind of burden, some kind of stress that we realize. The meditation also, that is second level of experiencing the Four Noble Truths. And more you give up, more you go deep into the other dimensions of the mind, the subtle dimensions of the mind, transcend these gross dimensions of the mind. You will experience more and more delight, more and higher happiness you experience. All this grossness, it creates more stress, creates more burden, creates more suffering. So in that way, in meditation, you experience the Four Noble Truths to a superior level, to an experiential level. And once you go so deep, and if you learn the complete art and science of transcending the body and mind, as Buddha did, sitting under the Bodhi tree, when he realized the supreme enlightenment, there he could see all the dimensions of this arising and perishing of the body and mind. And during that process, how the stress arises, how to let go this body, how to let go this mind authoritatively, correctly. And during that realization, he was very clear. He was very, very thorough in the knowledge of this Four Noble Truths. Even though it is experiential level, but it is a very, very deep experiential level. He could see, he could realize the Four Noble Truths. And that's what led his mind to the supreme enlightenment. The third watch of the night, he could thoroughly understand the Four Noble Truths to the deepest extent possible, at all the dimensions, at all the levels. Before that, he had beautiful knowledge, just like he could see others' minds and what kind of karma led to what kind of rebirths, what kind of births, all those things he could see others' minds and he could find out. That's also a great knowledge. And before that, he could see his own mind and he could see his many, many previous lives and how from one life to other life, his karma led him to different lives, different rebirths. And in the second watch of the night, he could see others' minds and how others' karma will lead them from one life to another life. And now in the third watch of the night, when he got the supreme enlightenment, he could thoroughly comprehend, thoroughly penetrate into the Four Noble Truths in all its dimensions, both intellectual understanding of the Four Noble Truths and also experiential understanding of the Four Noble Truths. In all dimensions. Now in this Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, I told three levels, how it has to be completely eradicated, the craving. And then he could completely eradicate the craving. And how I should develop this, the noble truth of, say, happiness, or the noble truth of how to develop the happiness. That also he could develop authoritatively, and he could reach the peak of the developing of this, the noble truth of happiness and the path that leads to the noble truth of happiness. So that kind of thorough, deep understanding, authoritatively in meditation, when you go through the jhanas, when you go through these insight knowledges, you experience these Four Noble Truths bit by bit in all its dimensions. Even a small thought, how it creates stress in the mind. So all those things will make you thorough in this knowledge of Four Noble Truths. That's what is the ultimate liberation, ultimate, say, emancipation. That's what all the Arhants also go through. All the liberated people, those who listen to Buddha and could comprehend both intellectually and also experientially these Four Noble Truths. They comprehend Four Noble Truths, both intellectually and experientially, and thereby they become the Arhants. So now, sooner or later, your intellectual understanding should not remain there itself. It should go deep. It should become experiential realization. That's why I have designed level 1, level 2, level 3 bridge course, and then I want to have these residential programs where many of you who have gone through this bridge course and also are interested in this level 4. Their experiential understanding, experiential realization will start happening. And it's not like, say, spontaneous. In a very few cases, it may be spontaneous because of the previous lives, say, training. But in the experiential realization, one has to put forth a lot of effort, a lot of skillful practice. That's why residential programs are required, that too in a very skillful way, with all skillful supporting conditions. Then that experiential realization of how this craving leads to suffering, how this giving and giving up leads to superior happiness and liberation. So that knowledge, just that kind of authoritative Four Noble Truth knowledge, one will start getting when he will start knowing about the body, knowing about the mind, knowing about the components of the body, knowing about the components of the mind. By achieving superior absorption, superior calmness, superior stillness of the mind, then seeing the body, seeing the mind, we can realize the Four Noble Truths more authoritatively, more deeply, more comprehensive. There are so many dimensions to understand the Four Noble Truths. All those dimensions start opening up in the meditative residential program. So that's what is the understanding of Four Noble Truths. And of course, intellectually understanding the Four Noble Truths, it has its own limitation. That also should happen in a very systematic and very comprehensive way. Simply, many people, they absorb, they imbibe the Four Noble Truths in a very bad way. In very distorted ways also they understand the Four Noble Truths. So when you understand the Four Noble Truths, even intellectually in a distorted way, it leads to more suffering only. It will not reduce even an iota of suffering. So whatever learning is happening, it should reduce our suffering. Then only it is the true learning. Is it not? If it is not reducing your stress and suffering, then what is the use of that knowledge? That such kind of distorted knowledge is taught or learned in a distorted way, that should be avoided. So first, the systematic step-by-step way, start understanding the Four Noble Truths, then understand the Four Noble Truths, experiential environment, start experiencing the Four Noble Truths. Then it is possible to reap the benefits of this understanding, this experiencing Four Noble Truths, and then definitely it will push you even to the absolute liberation also. So that's that way, understanding Four Noble Truths, it has so many dimensions, it has so many aspects, it has so many levels. Okay, next question.
Next question is from Praveen Banteji. They're asking what are parmis and how to develop.
Told so many times about the parmis. All the nice things, good for me, good for others, keeping in view my mental defilement should be removed from my mind. So such kind of all actions are parmis. They have selected some 10 such actions like dana, shila, panya, satya, aditana, kanti, patience. Aditana means determination. Satya means truthfulness. Dana means generosity, ability to offer, give, contribute. And then shila, the ability to practice moral things, precepts. And then metta, the loving kindness. Upeka, equanimity. Patience, determination. So all these things, it will free your mind authoritative, and it will go ahead in the path of this giving and giving up. That is what is punya. Punya, when it is perfect, then it is a parmi. Punya kriya means like anything that purifies the mind is punya. And when that purification of the mind is perfect, keeping in mind the liberation of the mind, or the becoming the Arya or the Nibbana is my ultimate goal. Keeping that ultimate goal in the mind, if you practice punya and you perfect it, then it becomes a perfection or a parmi. Parmi is translated in English as perfection. Perfection of what? Perfection of the purity of the mind. Perfection of the punya. Perfection of your wholesome action. That is what is parmi. So practice dana, practice shila, practice truthfulness, practice metta, practice patience, practice equanimity. All these things will perfect your mind. And in this perfection, how you achieve that perfection, authoritative perfection, should have that goal, that firmness in the goal of liberation. Then all the punya will become parmi. And when an action becomes punya, when you have an intention of purifying the mind. What is purification of the mind? My mind should be free from greed, hatred, and delusion. These are the three major impurities of the mind. These impurities should go away from my mind, because they only lead to stress and suffering. If these impurities, if I can correctly fix them by practicing the wholesome actions like these punya kriyas or punyas, like these dana, shila, bhavana, and all these things, then it will start purifying them. And the purification of the mind, it's not just for, say, to get some divine happiness or heavenly happiness. It is to completely liberate the mind from all this worldly existence, to get nibbana. With that aspiration, if you start doing different actions, fulfilling different actions, the same actions, dana, shila, and all these things, but the intention is absolute liberation, nibbana. So with that intention, if you fulfill these wholesome actions, the punyas, the punya kriyas, then they become perfections, parmis. Then they will completely liberate you, and you will get enlightenment. So even to get happiness, you should do this mind purification actions, punya kriyas. To get thorough liberation of the mind, to become a liberated man, to get nibbana, then these wholesome actions should be done with more seriousness, more authority, more wholesomeness. Then they become parmis. So that is the difference between good actions, punya kriyas, and the parmis. Good actions, they simply give some happiness, temporary happiness. The punyas, punya kriyas, the punya actions will give you happiness then and there also, and also it will take you to the divine realms or the heavenly realms. You will get after the death, you will get heavenly realms because of more purity of the mind. And by practicing parmi, the purity is much more stronger. You have purified your mind more deeply and more firmly. So they will give you more happiness, and even after the death also, you will get, say, nibbana, liberation. You may reach liberation and become arahant. Or if you get some divine realms also, heavenly realms also, from there you will get liberation. So the parmis are the ultimate purification. Techniques are the actions. Punyas are so in middle. It's better than ordinary good action. The punyas are little more powerful than the ordinary good actions. They will take you to the divine realms or the heavenly realms after the death. The ordinary good actions, they will give you happiness here and now. They can't take you to the divine realms after the death, but they give you some happiness here and now. So any action with these three intentions, if you perform, for example, same dana one, generosity, if you do it with some understanding, little bit of dana, then it gives you happiness here and now, and some benefits from the people around you in this life you will get. And if you do dana with an intention of purifying the mind, my greed should reduce, my hatred should reduce, my ignorance should reduce, and also it should help others, of course. With little more deeper intentions, if you practice, it becomes punya. And after the death, you will get heavenly realms. And with much more deeper intentions, if you do dana, this dana should liberate my mind thoroughly, and I should become an arhat, or I should get liberation. With that intention, if you do, for example, this dana kriya, then it becomes a parmi. So the same action, the intention, and how much enthusiastically you are doing, how much understanding, with how much conviction you are doing, that will say differentiate a good action from punya kriya, from wholesome action or punya kriya, and from that it will differentiate the parmi. Parmi should have ultimate superior intentions. Punya should have heavenly intentions, and good actions should have the goodness or happiness in this world. With that intention, one should do good actions. So that is the difference between a good action, a wholesome action, punya, and a parmi, a perfect action. Perfect action, parmis always lead to liberation, punyas lead to heavenly realms, and good actions lead to happiness in this life. That is the difference. Okay, that's it.
One more question, Banteji.
Yes, sir.
From Deepali Habali, ma'am. Banteji, can we have elaborate discourse on Four Noble Truths in the future? And
No, it will be discussed in, already discussed in different levels, and then should be experienced in the level 4 programs, the residential programs. Next question.
one more question from Deepali Habali, ma'am, Banteji. What is the role of gratitude in Dhamma, Banteji?
Gratitude has all the role. If you are progressing in Dhamma, means one should have gratitude. The gratitude is the expression of your progress in Dhamma. There is no gratitude, you can immediately say that he doesn't know Dhamma, he has not learned. What after all is gratitude? Something superior I got. Oh, I should be humble. I should owe to this. That kind of feelings, that kind of intentions a person has, that is gratitude, because that is the power of Dhamma. No material wealth in this whole world, the whole universe, is equal to even 1,000th or 1 billionth of the true Dhamma. Knowledge, the purity, the happiness one derives from the correct right view, the correct Dhamma, is far, far, far superior than all the worldly happiness of this world. If that understanding is there, then automatically gratitude will be there. And then once a person has a gratitude, then automatically he will incline in that path. He will start prodding in that path. If there is no gratitude, then simply ignores that path. That is the beauty of gratitude. Gratitude is there, it will keep you in the track. It will fix you, keep you in the track. If there is no gratitude, one will go off track. So like Devadatta, he was not having gratitude. So whatever he has learned, everything he has to forget. Everything he has to lose. And he was completely perished. Completely he was both physically and mentally he was completely spoiled, completely. He has to suffer because of non-inclination, because of no gratitude. No gratitude, no inclination, no interest in progressing in Dhamma, and that will lead to, say, the complete, indulgence in all the worldly nonsense, the defilements. The dance of defilements will start in one's mind. There is no gratitude. The game of defilements. It will overtake whatever knowledge, whatever purity one has gained. That will be overtaken. That will be subdued by the defilements. In that way, gratitude, it will keep you in the track. That is first benefit. The second benefit is you'll get the right association with gratitude. And again, that is the right association will keep you in the track. It will help you to be in the track. And the third benefit is the mind will be in the receiving end. It will not puffed up with the ego, and it will not cover for the inflow of the right knowledge. Will not obstruct. Gratitude will open up. That is one more benefit of gratitude. Therefore, gratitude has a lot of importance in progressing in Dhamma, in the right view, Nibbana. Okay, we'll conclude.
Yes, Guruji.
No questions?
No more questions.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa bhavatu sabba mangalang rakkantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sabba dhammanubhavena sabba sanghanubhavena sada swati bhavantu te sukhi bhaveyang nidhuko ahang nicha ahang viya idacha me sukhi hontu majhata chatavedino mam higammante dhamme satta hontu sukhi sada Tato parancharadjesu chakkavale sujantano sadhu 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 sukhi hontu mangal ho. May all of you be happy, healthy and peaceful. May all of you progress in this path, find liberation. May this Dhamma wheel roll in your life, roll in your mind, roll in your life, in your existence. Let it occupy your being. You just allow this Dhamma will to occupy your being, then automatically life becomes easy. You will flow along with Dhamma. You will be protected by Dhamma. You will flow along with the Dhamma. And you will start reaping all the benefits of being with the Dhamma, like health, happiness, peace of mind, wisdom, freedom, all these things.
Thank you, Guruji.
Sadhu, Sukhi.